Hello, everyone. Welcome to Paraversal Universe on the Inception Radio Network. Brought to you by the Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited and the Northwoods Paranormal Resource Center here in Rylander, Wisconsin. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malek.
Hello, everybody.
And hello to everyone in the IRN chat room. We look forward to your questions and comments as always. IRNchat.com is the link for the chat room, so come join us there. And welcome everyone to this year's season premiere of Paraversal Universe, now in our fourth year. We're back this year with new shows and new guests.
And we're excited.
Yes. We have an awesome show for you all tonight. In a couple minutes, we're going to bring out ufologist, journalist, and author Cheryl Costa. But before we do, we have some shout-outs to get to. Shout-outs go to those who share our show banners on social media every week. And this year, everyone has been exceptionally super gracious, as Facebook and YouTube have been censoring and demonetizing free-thinking shows, which cover things that mainstream media won't touch, like ours, which has made it a bit more difficult to advertise the way we have been accustomed to, which is why these shout-outs become that much more important, because you are the ones who are helping us deal with this new adversity. So thank you all so much. And, I must say, looking at the numbers right before we went on, because of your shares, we ended up with the same amount of views we normally enjoy in the past, which proves that the people do have the power. Censorship is wrong. But thank you all for your support. You guys rock. Who do we have tonight?
Okay. So we have David Keelman, Walt Christos, Thoughts of Christos, Cindy Lou, Bizarro World, Dave Blank, Paranormal World, Lark Walk, Kane Adams, the Fox Valley Ghost Hunters, Brian Wayland, Marilyn Borscht, Debbie Warren, Kay Hurl, Bob Stiegel, Dawn and Brent Elmer, Becky Sivley, Barry John Bauer, Sonia Donson, Jason Bland, Jamie Demlos, Paranormal Soup, Howie Odell of The Orion Effect, Shawnee Michael of Oshkosh Paranormal, and Steve Foster.
And to everybody in chat, family and friends, it's good to be back, and it's good to see you guys all in chat. So alrighty, our guest tonight is ufologist Cheryl Costa, co-author of the UFO Desk Reference book. Let me grab her bio here. I'm going to run through this. It's pretty long. But we have Sunny Empire State University, Bachelor's in Arts, Media Science Filmmaking, Associate's Degree in Science from Tri-Rivers Community College, journalist for Syracuse News, Times columnist, featured on television, video, and film, security analyst for Lockheed Martin, and military in service includes Navy as electronics instructor and radar, and with one-time top secret clearance. She conducts polls and gathers data on ufology. Many, including us, are impressed with her focused diligence and dedication to statistics, facts, and figures. So we'll be discussing some of those statistics, which we find so interesting, as well as Cheryl's views on ufology, past, present, and future, and anything else ufology or journalism we end up discussing. And remember, folks, ask your questions and make comments at ironchat.com, and Jen will take those questions and ask them to Cheryl. Shall we bring her on?
Yes, let's do that.
Cheryl, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you for having me, Kevin and Jennifer.
Welcome to the show. Let's start with the beginning of your career. Always a good place to start. How did you get in the field of ufology? I guess more specifically, into polling folks and collecting data.
Well, okay. I had my first sighting when I was about 12 years old, and that my mother pointed it out to me, explained to me what it might be, what it might not be, and from there, we developed a very close relationship. I was at that stage where teenagers where mom and dad are stupid, and this was one of those things where mom really got my attention when she explained the UFO might be people from another world, that sort of thing. So we both began getting books from the library and things like this and sharing them with each other. This is in the late 60s. And from that standpoint, I was always just a UFO bystander. I just was read on anything I happened to run across. Never really spoke to a lot of people about it. Then in 2012, I was working for a newspaper. And in fact, I wasn't a journalist. I was a production technician. And we had just put the newspaper to bed. The presses were rolling, 700-ton press out there just cranking out the newspapers. And all I really had to do was sit tight for the next 2 hours and wait for them to finish the production. That was it. So I was looking at CNN.com, the webpage for CNN, and there was this little sidebar story that said, UFOs have been declining since the 80s. Maybe they were always just an urban legend. And I sat back and I said, that doesn't feel right. So for the first time in my life, I went out on Google and I went out to the National UFO Reporting Center and I pulled up like the year-end totals for from about 1990 right up to about 2000. And I put them in a little spreadsheet and there was this little bar chart and it went up like a rocket. And the first inclination I had was, what memo didn't the UFOs get?
Right.
And so, also having been on this site, I started reading different people's reports, and I expect to see a lot of what I'm going to call crackpot reporting, and it wasn't the case. What I started seeing were very heartfelt explanations, people sharing, I saw something fantastic, and this is what we saw. This was not something that looked like anything ordinary. I kept seeing these, and people were just basically trying to get it off their chest because nobody else would talk to them. The police department didn't want to hear about it. The local news desk at the newspaper didn't want to hear about it. And so they were just trying to unload what they had seen. And they had seen something amazing in most cases. And yeah, there was a court case. Occasionally you'd see a hoaxy type thing. But for the most part, most of these people were pretty genuine and just wanted to get it off their chest. So I started writing up these stories and punching them up. My degree is in entertainment writing, so I'm not bound by the same journalistic rules. I couldn't tell you who they were because these things were anonymous. I can't tell you why. And if I could, I'd be getting a Nobel Prize why these UFOs are here. But I can tell you what, when, and where. So I would write these stories up, and if there was no name associated, suddenly it was Bob and Susie or Kevin and Jennifer, saw right. This thing. They were walking the dog, And that's how I got into it. And I went around and I pitched about 12 or 15 editors. And I got laughed out of the offices. I got thrown out of the offices. I got escorted out by security. I had one editor look at me and say, "And what brand of tinfoil do you wear?" And it was very, very demoralizing. And finally, I went to a weekly paper, and this particular editor had worked for the same newspaper I was doing production work for. And he wouldn't even look at the three or four PowerPoint slides that I had printed out. He said, "Let's talk." He poured me some tea, and we just sat there and we talked for 45 minutes. And this guy had read a lot of the same stuff I had. We had a very deep, very sane conversation. So he said, "Okay, tell you what, show me your slides." And I proposed the idea for a column for their online edition, which was just really starting to, get its feet. And Larry said to me, he says, "Okay, I'll try you out for a month. There'll be about 4 or 5 episodes of this proposed column." He says, "In a month, if I don't like it, we'll pull it. That'll be it." I said, "Okay, fine. That's fair." About a month later, he calls me up on the phone and says, "Come on over to a meeting. We need to talk about your column." I'm going, "Oh, I'm thinking about that's it." So I get over there. I walk into the meeting. I'm a few minutes late because I have a parking problem. I walk in, and there's Larry, and he said, "Well, there's our rock star."
How cool.
And I looked at him and I said, "What do you mean?" And then he looks at me and he says, "You're pulling more page views than all the columnists combined." So obviously we had something. We had lightning in a bottle there, and we continued. And so I've been doing it now for 4.5 years, and it's been very successful. It's over 230, 240 weekly articles I've written. So. And my wife made the comment to me, she was afraid that I would maybe get 20 articles in and not have enough to talk about. But that hasn't been the case.
I want to point out, we don't have your book yet, UFO Sightings Desk Reference, but we do have, we do have a like page, or you have a like page on Facebook, UFO Desk Reference, which we enjoy, and everyone should go and like it if you're on Facebook. And so we've been able to check out a lot of the stuff that you post, and statistics and articles that you've written, because you'll find both of them there. My first question is, out of all the stats that you've collected, which one surprised you the most? And why?
What surprised me the most?
Well, out of all the different statistics that you've collected, or the different polls that you do, because I know
I haven't been doing poll. I do a few polls now and then, but the statistics, I took both the National UFO Reporting Center and the MUFON data from 2001 to 2015, and we put them together. And then we also added county data, since it was just a big list of cities and states. And that was the first time anybody had ever done that before. And we literally have the ability right now, and I'm sitting here looking at a spreadsheet. I'm looking at Wisconsin, and you tell me a county, and I can literally drill down to the municipalities in that county and tell you how many UFO sightings they had during the 2001 to 2015 15-year period. That was a piece of I'm going to call it, software engineering. We did a really good job of doing it. I'm not marveling at my own work, but we did something nobody else had done before. Most everybody, in fact, one of the things that used to bother me an awful lot about UFOlogy, you go to a convention and it seemed like all the speakers were talking about crash here, crash there. It was like a golden oldies radio station, the best UFO crashes from the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Right.
And nobody was talking about numbers. And I did a presentation about 4 years ago at the International UFO Congress. In fact, I'm speaking there in about 2 weeks about the current book, the UFO Sightings Desk Reference. And but back in 2014, I was the only presenter. I was talking about New York State and the UFO sightings in New York State, and I was the only person who had charts and graphs and numbers. And that surprised a bunch of people. And I had a professor from Sonoma University in California come up to me. He was an astronomy professor, Gordon Spear, and Dr. Gordon Spear. And he asked me if I could drill down and get information at a different level. And we got talking about it, and he wanted county information. And I said, that's a tall order. So we went into this thing. We figured out how to do this. Now,
Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive's Employee of the Month, 2 months in a row. Leave a message at the... Hi, Jamie. It's me, Jamie. I just had a new idea for our song about the Name Your Price tool. So when it's like, tell us what you want to pay, hey, 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 and the trombone goes, wah, 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 and you say, we'll help you find coverage options to fit your budget. Then we just all do finger snaps while a choir goes, savings coming at ya, savings coming at ya. Yes? No? Maybe? Anyway, see your practice tonight. I got new lyrics for the rap break.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
I came from a 32-year career with Lockheed Martin, and my spouse was also what I'm going to call a beltway bandit. We were both defense contractors, so to speak. And so we're used to writing process for everything we learn how to do. And when we wrote the book, we had done New York State, and it took us 3-4 months to do New York State. Well, with the processes that we developed, I can crunch a state like New York State in about a day now. But back when we did it the first time, we didn't know what we were doing, you know. So if there was a statistic of all the statistics we have, all the state-sized statistics, over 3,000 counties in the United States, and we had the UFO stats for all of them, okay, I think the most interesting statistic for me was what day of the week people see UFOs. Statistically, it's flat all week. I'm not saying dead flat, but it's statistically flat all week at a quiescent level of sightings. And those sightings are by people who walk dogs or out having a smoke while walking the dog. Okay? Those are the people who are out there day in, day out all year long. Rain or shine. But as you get towards the weekend, other people start having leisure time. Okay? So it starts to tick up a little bit on Friday, and then Saturday night seems to tick up something on the order of 7 to 9%, depending upon where you are. And then Sunday is about the same as Friday. It ticks back down again. But basically, we discovered, and this is the stat that impressed us, in the United States, UFO sighting reports seem to be driven by temperate weather and leisure time.
You know, and once you establish that, when you point it out, it does make sense, right? I mean, because it does.
Well, yeah, it does, but it wasn't intuitive to begin with.
Right, exactly.
The other goofy thing, and I didn't discover this, my wife Linda discovered this. I had already crunched all the states and counties and all this stuff. I had all the charts, and I had given them to her. She had them over on a different computer, and she was laying this book out. Now, please understand, I don't know if you've seen the book online, the picture of the book. It's got a plain white cover with just some black and white writing and a hand sketch of a UFO. If you get into it, it's got all the charm of a bank ledger. It's charts, graphs, and numbers. And there have been some people who complained about it's just charts, graphs, and numbers. But in those numbers are the secrets of the universe. Now, we've got about 4 chapters of narrative where I did a certain level of analysis of what things we saw. Now, I was writing one of those chapters of analysis when Linda was laying out the book. She used to work for the National Academy of Science, so she knew how to lay a book out and make it look like a government report.
Nice.
Which was a little subversive thing we were doing there. You know, and she looked over her terminal. Now, you got to appreciate this. The New York Times noticed this. The guy who came to interview us for the New York Times back in early April, he said, "Where did you actually write this book?" Now, we did the interview. We had a library in the front of our house. Okay, 1,000 books on the walls. And he says, "Where did you write the book?" And I took him upstairs to our sewing room, which was a room that would have been the master bedroom, but we decided to put cutting tables in there and make a big sewing room. Okay, we both sew. And our computers were in there as well. And he made a comment in the article that strewn among all this sewing paraphernalia are the computers that compose this book. And what was fun about it was the day after the New York Times article was posted online, Vogue magazine, Vogue.com, posted a UFO article and quoted a majority of the article, especially the parts about our sewing room. So, okay, I think I've lost track of what the original question was, but the bottom line was when we put the book together, the other amazing statistic that we discovered, when we had done New York State, I did a little chart for every state. It was plotted UFO sightings not by year, but by month. Okay? Mm-hmm. What months of the year have the sightings? And a couple of the UFOologists here in New York State, you know, I'm talking like retired MUFON state directors, things like that, thought it was a stupid chart. Okay? And they questioned why I was going to put it in the book. Because you looked at it and you saw that there was a small amount of sightings, January, February, March. Wisconsin's like this, January, February, March, April, and May and June. It starts to tick up ever so slightly. And then July and August are through the roof, peak right up. And then it starts to trail off again in September, October, November, and back down to that quiescent level like January was with this November and December. Okay?
Right.
And of course, the logical answer everybody gave me was, "Well, Cheryl, it's pretty straightforward. It's summertime in July and August. That's why everybody can see UFOs, because it's nice weather." And we assumed that every state had a pattern like that. We were wrong. We were wrong. Linda looked over the computer one Saturday afternoon and said, "Hey, have you noticed that peak in the middle, the monthly chart changes depending upon the latitude?" And I said, "What?" And we went and looked at it, and we realized that the northern states, in a state like Wisconsin, it peaks in the June, July, August, September time frame. But if you move down to mid-Atlantic states from about Maryland and Virginia straight across the country, that peak starts flattening out. You go down to the deep south states, and it's statistically flat because it's warmer there. It turns out it's warmer there all the time, so you've got that temperate weather all the time. And that surprised the hell out of me. That was a discovery my wife Linda made. That this stuff changes with the latitude.
That's interesting. That really is. So I have one of the surveys in front of me, and I just want to read it because it's really interesting. And there was a couple things in here that stood out to me too, because I felt like I think some of the stuff that we're fed in the mainstream media isn't always accurate. Okay, right? Big surprise, but
Well, please understand, there's not necessarily a conspiracy by the mainstream press to get to report the wrong stuff. Is that the problem is that your day-to-day reporter doesn't have a clue about this subject matter.
Well, fair enough.
Okay, because that's literally what I ran up against. Is I was watching after the December 16th New York Times article about the Pentagon and all that kind of stuff. And I was watching morning shows like Good Morning America and the Today Show. And these people who are used to making fun of us about this topic matter were stumbling all over themselves trying to wrap their head around the idea that there might be aliens and these UFOs might be real and the tinfoil hat crowd may be onto something. And as one guy put it, maybe tinfoil's the new black,
Cool.
But go ahead. What survey are you talking about?
Okay, I'm talking about extraterrestrial presence opinions.
Oh, that one. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
That was a poll. That was a little poll I did.
I thought it was really cool. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 options, and I'm going to read them for everybody. Extraterrestrials have been visiting the Earth for millennia. Okay, 48% of the people believe that. The second one was there are off-world beings, but they haven't visited Earth, and 26% believe that. The third one was extraterrestrials are here and live among us. 15% believe that. The next one was there are ancient aliens, but they no longer visit Earth, and that's 6%. Extraterrestrials are nothing but demons trying to influence us, and that was almost 3%. And then the last one was there are no off-world beings anywhere, which was only 1%. And the two things one thing that struck out to me was that last one, because that would suggest, as far as ufology is concerned, that if there's no off-world beings anywhere, whether it's extraterrestrial, interdimensional, interterrestrial, whatever, that it would have to be military craft of some kind, us doing it. And I would think that, more people would have that opinion. But according to your survey, that wasn't true. And the other thing that stuck out was the extraterrestrials are nothing but demons trying to influence us. And that was only 3%. And my thought was, I thought that would have been a little bit higher just because of so many people belong to organized religion and stuff. And that's the status quo for many, religions, that's the case. So I don't know. But I didn't notice that, and I just lost my spot here. Well, here, let me ask you. Did any of that surprise you at all? I mean, what are your thoughts? What was your thought about that poll?
Well, that first item that they've been here and they've been visiting us for a long time, that shows you a lot of people believe in the ancient astronauts theory. Maybe not every single thing like Ancient Aliens program puts out. I mean, there's a lot of baloney in there on some of their episodes, but their basic premise for their first 3 seasons was pretty solid. And a lot of people I've talked to feel that way. Now, just before I started writing my column, I wasn't sure whether or not there would be any reception to it. And I went to a particular truck stop diner that I used to like to eat at. And I sat at the bar, ordered up my breakfast, and there was people on both sides of me. And I spoke out very loud and said, "Hey, I'm getting ready to write a column about UFOs. Has anybody here ever seen one?" And a couple of people, I heard some grumbling up and down the thing. And then suddenly somebody said, "Yeah, I have." And a guy got up, walked down and talked to me. And then another person came down and talked to me. And I must have had 10 people talk to me over the period of the next half hour. Either they knew somebody or they were somebody that had seen something amazing. Now, something I discovered during the course of writing my column over the last 5 years is because we've had for 70 years this sort of attitude of denial and ridicule for people who see and report these things, a lot of people didn't. And these numbers, I have my book based on the 121,000 sightings for a 15-year period, 21st century 15-year period, 2001 to 2015. Well, we estimate only 1 in about 40 people reports what they see. Those numbers are significantly higher, I bet you. Okay. And something I discovered is during the course of writing my column, every now and then someone would invite me over to a backyard barbecue. Of course, I always had a security guy come over with me, make sure it wasn't, a nefarious thing. Right. And after we get over there and found out it really is a backyard barbecue and a family reunion, somebody would put a beer in my hand and a burger and say, "Hey, we want to introduce you to our Uncle Ralph who saw this, or our Aunt Susie who saw this, or my mother over here, and she was there when my grandmother gave a deathbed confession." And what we discovered were families are handing their UFO stories down within the families like family heirlooms.
That's cool.
There's been an oral tradition of sharing these stories.
I noticed too, and I saw another pie graph that you had done, and according to that, 3/4 of the people didn't need confirmation from anybody, whether it's government, officials, anyone, that other beings from wherever else existed. And that's just, that's was that 75%? Yeah, it was quite high. It was higher than I would have thought.
Well, the numbers from that particular poll, and that was done by National Geographic in 2012. 36% clearly believed in the subject matter. Okay, essentially a third of Americans. Okay, 44%, something like that, were on the fence. And they were the people who really, really got excited when that December 16th article in the New York Times.
The Starlight Lounge presents An Evening with the Progressive Box.
I took a bit of a risk singing that song, but of course the one place I never take chances is the road, where Progressive Snapshot rewards your safe driving. A good driver plus Snapshot equals big discounts. And speaking of math, 1 + 1 = 2, little too late.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Snapshot not available in California, North Carolina, or from all agents.
Came out.
Right.
Okay. Because it was sort of confirmation for them. Okay. And then there's like 17%, ain't no way, there's no such thing, da-da-da-da. Okay. But that same survey said 70% felt that, that's at 36% and 40%, 70% felt that the government was not being square with us about what they know. Now that's a pretty big demographic when you think or figure our population is 320 million, and you take that 320 million times 0.75, and that's 240 million people in the United States think the government's not being square with them about it.
All right, everybody. With that, it is time for our first commercial break. You are listening to Paraversal Universe on the Inception Radio Network. We will be right back.
Welcome back to Paraversal Universe on the Inception Radio Network. We're your hosts, Kevin and Jennifer Malek, and we are talking to Cheryl Costa about ufology, facts, and figures. But before we bring her back on, we'd like to take a minute and thank everybody that makes Paraversal Universe possible, including graphic art designer Lawrence DiMisa, webmaster Joe Champion, music by Matt Stens, producer Mike M.J. Lucas, and of course to God for granting us this wonderful show and opportunity here to be with you all. This segment is brought to you by Lucas Wellness and the UFO Wisconsin Research Team and the book Trail of the Sasquatch, A Shaman's Journey. We do have 3 Paraversal Universe like pages on Facebook, so check those out. You also check out Jennifer Malek, Psychic Demonologist, Jennifer's like page, and of course, Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society Limited like page. We also have 2 group pages worth noting: Lake Monstrosities, which is the largest group page on Facebook for aquatic mysteries and lake monsters, and finally, Ultimate Conspiracies, which is pretty much self-explanatory. If you have any questions for our guests, go to ironchat.com. Go to our live Iron Run chat room where you can post questions and make comments, and Jennifer will pass those along. And you said there were some questions?
Yes, we actually got one submitted to us earlier. During the show with... Oh, I'm sorry. This was for you for during the show. With everyone having decent or semi-decent cell phones with video capability, have good UFO reports gone up or down?
I don't see the UFO sightings being affected very much by the cell phones. People see it, and sometimes they attempt to shoot a picture of it, but it's not like these cell phones have telephoto lens or anything. So I get pictures sent to me all the time, and there's this either a dark sky or a twilight sky, and there's this bright dot, and that's all I see. So I hear people say, well, you got millions of cell phones out there. Why don't we have a really good picture? Well, I wish there was a really good picture, but most of the time these things are in the distance, and cell phones don't have a telephoto lens to get you a really good picture.
Another question we had from another chat room guest was, the stats that you do, are they from around the world or just the U.S.?
I use the MUFON and National UFO Reporting Center, so it's principally the United States. In fact, the book is called the UFO Sightings Desk Reference, United States of America, 2001 to 2015. We thought about compiling the Canadian numbers along with it, but the book is already 300 and some odd, 70 or 80 pages. It was already too big. It's a 2.5-pound book. There isn't a really good international database. I've got some friends in Europe that are trying to find the databases within the individual countries in the European Union, but it's been really hard to gather that data.
I bet, especially in some of those countries.
One more question.
Sure.
Somebody else in chat would like to know if the data is available to the public to see, or is it only in the book?
It's only in the book. I've had people ask me why I haven't published the data online. The attitude, this is an attitude. This took me almost a year and a half to process. And that's my work. Okay. Right. And you don't give away your work, And so one thing we're thinking about doing, though, is we are thinking about publishing we didn't publish the main book as a Kindle book. I had a lot of people were upset about that. It was strictly a paper book. It's a reference book. It was my spouse is a career research librarian. She wanted to see this book in the reference section of every library in the country is what she would like to see. Okay? Right there along with the census reports, all that stuff. And this is intended to be for researchers. Now, people did complain to us, why didn't you put it on Kindle? Well, the charts and graphs did not lend themselves to Kindle. We have one copy in a Kindle format. It's on my Kindle, and it's terrible. It looks terrible, and so we didn't publish it in Kindle. Now, we have a book that we want to put out called the Cities Directory. You notice how I was able to go state, county, and right down to the city?
Yes.
We were thinking about publishing a Cities Directory and making that available both in hard form and in Kindle form. But right now, we're still cleaning up the database. There just aren't enough hours in the day because the 121,000 sightings that are in that data, I had to touch literally every one of them, and we're not done yet. We're only about two-thirds through, and correct the spellings of cities and things like this. So that's been a problem. The data is dirty. People who fill out these UFO reports frequently do not fill out the name of the city properly. Okay? I'll give you an example. In our book, we said there was only 2019 sightings in Maricopa County, which is essentially Phoenix, Arizona. Okay. When we got it cleaned up later after the book was out and I was working with the database towards this goal of making a cities directory, we found 500 sightings in Arizona where they spelled Phoenix wrong.
Oh, wow.
Instead of PHOEXIN, or NIX, they spelled it with the PHEO instead of OE.
Right.
So when I've been telling people on these radio interviews, when we eventually do get a book out that's got the cities directory, there's going to be a difference with the Maricopa County, and there's going to be a difference in some other states. We've already caught some errors like this with some other states, but you can't run a spell check against the database because it will correct all the wrong things.
Right. Wow. So, and you had mentioned Phoenix. One of the things I was looking at was the top 5 cities in America for UFOs.
Right.
And I wanted to read the 5 and get your impression on each one. And the first one was Phoenix. Phoenix is supposed to be the #1 city with UFO sightings. Why do you think that is? Why Phoenix? And I know these are tough. I mean, these are guesstimates sometimes, but
okay. Well, let's look at it 2 ways here. When the book was first coming out, when I was starting to get some press back last April 2017, one of the initial responses we had was California had the most sightings of any state, 15,836. Okay, and Los Angeles County had 3,212 sightings in that period. It was more than 40 individual states by themselves. Okay. Maricopa County, Arizona came in second with that 2,000, now we know it to be about 2,500 number. Okay, now there's two issues here. In Los Angeles County, and I'm not talking the city now, there's a difference here. The city of Los Angeles is not that high on the list. It's down like number 25 or something like that. But okay, let's talk about the counties here for a moment. Los Angeles County has had UFO sightings since before we've had manned flight. They had them in the 1880s, flying up and down the valleys out there in the mountains. Okay? Of course, they had the huge Battle of L.A. In February of 1942. Okay? Now, that instilled sort of a cultural thing that something fantastic happened. It got passed down in family lore in LA, think about that a minute, for the last 70 years. Okay? And I think there's a cultural and hereditary directive. Wow, something happened. My grandfather saw it, and people are looking up because maybe we'll see something again. Okay? Now, let's go to Phoenix, Maricopa County. They had the Phoenix Lights back in 1997. Okay? Yep. Again, 3/4 of the population of that city saw that thing that was 2 football fields long and blotted out the stars. Okay? So that gets handed down in this family tradition of stories and people talking about it. Yeah, my mother saw it, my uncle saw it, and it gets handed down, and people have a tendency to look up because maybe we'll see it again. And I think that has a lot to do with, and there's a lot of stuff up there. If you look up in the sky and you're quiet and you're not playing with your phone, there's plenty of stuff to see and plenty of stuff to misidentify, but there's plenty of stuff to see.
I like that answer. And I think you're right, too.
Oh my, that is so right. And that is actually true. If people spent less time looking at their devices and more time sky watching, they would probably see things they have questions about or wouldn't normally see.
Let me tell you a quick little story. I do a thing called live action role play, sort of like reenacting medieval. You run around with rubber swords, chase monsters in the woods, that type of thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm a LARPer, and a particular LARP I was doing in northern Pennsylvania was on an old dairy farm that had been converted into a LARP facility. The barn had been made into a tavern. Okay, into a medieval tavern kind of thing. And this big, beautiful property, we had huts and things all over the place. And, of course, the people who ran the thing would give us plenty of monsters and enemies to chase with our rubber swords. Well, I'm getting pretty old. I'm 65 years old, and I just can't march through the woods anymore. So one night, they were out chasing something, and I said, I'll guard the tavern. And I was sitting out by the front door of this tavern building, and I laid my head back against the wood, the counter, or the door casing, and I just watched the sky. And within 10 minutes, I had figured out the landing pattern for Scranton Airport, which was 30 miles away.
Wow.
Okay, it was very easy to figure out. All you had to do was watch it. Okay. Right. After I figured out that stuff, I looked up higher. And that's when I started seeing the real activity. I counted 40 bona fide UFO sightings. Nothing I called in, nothing I wrote up. Okay, I did write an article about the fact that I saw this stuff, and I got chewed out by a lot of people because I didn't report the sightings. But I just laid my head back and watched it. And I've heard people in different reports say, my wife and I were laying on the hood of our car watching the stars, and we saw all this amazing stuff. Yeah. Shut the bloody phone off, quiet yourself, stop running your mouth, and just watch the sky. There's plenty of stuff to see.
Yeah, when we sky watch, we don't do it in the wintertime, obviously. It's cold. But in the summertime, we'll go out and we'll do that, We'll pick a night. And if the weather permits and the stars are out, we'll go out and lie down and the skies are so busy. people don't realize how much stuff is going on up there unless you just, like you just said, just take the time and do it. And I guarantee you're going to see something eventually you can't explain.
Well, it's like we even do that just driving around sometimes, really in the morning or really late at night, coming back from someplace or going someplace. We've had several encounters where we actually seen lights. And, you know, some of them, as soon as they passed through a cloud or by a cloud, they were gone.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are, you know, oh, okay, yeah, that's a planet. And,
right.
Oh, look at that for a minute. Oh, okay, no, I could tell it's a plane. You know, but yeah, once in a while you get something that's like, oh, I don't know what that is.
Can we talk about disclosure for a moment?
Yes.
Yes, please, let's.
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you saw my article this week, but I really got on a tirade and said it's about time to tell the truth. Okay? And that was the flavor of my article. How about the truth? And I argued a case that we've been lied to for 70 years now. Here we're finding out that all of us who have been called tinfoil hat people for a long, long time, suddenly we find out the government's been spending money for a long time. We all kind of knew that, but now it was confirmed. Okay? And I made that towards the end of the summary of the article, and I was really surprised my editor left it in just the way I wrote it. I said, the president needs to stop tweeting and needs to order the Secretary of the Defense to ask all those unacknowledged intelligence units in the Pentagon to give up what they know. Okay, because it has to be done that way. Okay, we need the president to do the same with the Central Intelligence Agency. For the longest time, in fact, one of the best Easter eggs we were given was just before Obama left office. The CIA declassified like 13 million documents, and a lot of it was Kissinger cables and things like this from the 60s and 70s. But there were 70-year-old documents by the CIA about UFOs, and they had scientists in the Office of Scientific Investigation pulling their hair out about some of the same things Linda and I were pulling our hair out a year and a half ago. Okay, and they were getting paid a lot of money. We were getting ridiculed, The other point that I got, one of the other comments that I got a lot of chuckles about from the editorial staff was I said, it's time for the National Academy of Science, and quote, get off their laureled academic butts and put some serious science into researching this topic matter.
Which brings me, I was going to ask you, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
Question was, as of late last year, Turkey now has a college, 30,000 people, academic, that is teaching ufology. You can go and get academic, I think it's a degree in ufology. And we were talking about that on a Paranormal Blender episode we did before. And our producer, Mike, made a really good point that America really dropped the ball, on leading everybody and what we could have done, setting examples and making some of this, pseudoscience that used to be laughed at, that people aren't, not as many people are laughing anymore. And every day more and more people realize that, there are, we're being lied to and things are being covered up and there's more out there than meets the eye. But I guess my question was, what do you think about that? About the fact that there is now academics in ufology, or ufology academics?
Okay, I'm happy to hear that. You know what's going to happen? I've been very cynical. After disclosure, a lot of people you never heard of are suddenly going to be experts on the topic matter.
Right.
It always happens that way. All these people come out of the woodwork. They were laughing at you 2 years ago. Suddenly they're an expert on it, And you see that a lot in the New Age community. We've been lied to a lot. I spent 7 years in a Buddhist monastery. And from the mid-'90s through the early 2000s, I was an ordained Buddhist nun. And our lamas basically told us that people need to expand their reality a little bit because they have a very narrow view. A lot of people just walk around going to work, going to school, taking the kids to school, whatever, and they have this very narrow view of what the world is. And there's a lot more to the world, and the more you stretch your view on it, the more you see. You see the discrimination, you see the maltreatment of women, and you start seeing maybe some of the exotic, the wider you start opening up your view of reality and belief. I'll give you an example. One of the things they've always argued about disclosure, oh, it will mess up everybody's religion. I'm sorry. Most of the people I know of faith will say of Christian Judeo faith. Most of the serious theologians and people like that I know say, hey, to use a generic term, the great maker made a very mysterious and wonderful universe out there, more than just us. And oh, by the way, the universe is teeming with life because God's love is that big.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think that with all the presidents we've had over the years, think about how many opportunities we could have had to have disclosure, and yet it hasn't happened. And I agree with you. I think he needs to stop tweeting for the time. He needs to stop with the tweets, and he needs to get people disclosure because somebody has to. And it's about time that it happens because we all have a right to know. We've had so much hidden from us from the government for far too long, and it's time that we get in on what's going on.
Well, it's a little bigger. It's bigger, too. It's not just the fact that they've been keeping us in the dark. But if you look at the material they talked about in the initial New York Times article, and there's more coming. I've got a finger in with the New York Times, and there's more coming. Okay? One of the points they made was they had that video there, and you saw the pilot. Most people were just, oh, yeah, where are they from? This is people in the media. They did, and I pointed out in one of my articles. I said, "Wait a minute! Did you listen to the rest of that soundtrack?" That pilot said, "Wow, it took off like that! Oh my God, there's a whole fleet of them." Okay, now I'm sorry. I had 2 years Air Force service and almost 9 years worth of Navy. I've got let's see, about 10 years military service altogether. Okay, and that represents a clear and present danger. And this guy that retired from the Pentagon there, Lewis, he's saying, hey, there were a lot of pundits out there went out there and said, oh, there's always somebody out there with an experimental aircraft. Okay, I can accept there might be somebody out there from another country with an experimental aircraft, but not a fleet of them. There's a clear and present danger here, and I think the Defense Department needs to be square with the American people, and if they are square with us, we will follow them and say, do what you got to do your job, protect us. But right now, they're keeping it a secret. We don't know how much of a threat we're really dealing with. And I'm not 100% sure there's a threat, but there's something going on, and if we don't know what it is, we don't understand it. So if we don't understand it, we fear it, and we shouldn't be fearing this.
Some people have suggested that the mortal powers that be eventually are going to, let's say, hoax an alien invasion of some type, and that disclosure, or I'm just saying that. There's all these different ideas out there, and I see division even in ufology on different what different people believe. But regardless of what point anyone takes, they're out there, and it's happening. And it's weird because the government has spent so much money covering this up for so long, and now we see this. And, and I could see why people come to different conclusions than yours or mine or Jennifer's or, whoever. We're running out of time. We got like 2 minutes left.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
thank you for coming on. We enjoyed it so much.
Yeah, it was great having you on. While we have 2 minutes left, do you have any up-and-coming projects, any links, or anything you would like to share?
Well, I am speaking at the International UFO Congress in Tempe, Arizona in about 2 weeks. In fact, I think I'm speaking on the opening day of the convention. So I'm going to be giving a really good shoot from the hip presentation on national statistics. And I might even have some new information to share that's never been shared before.
That's awesome.
If anybody's in the area and you can go and check it out, it sounds like something you definitely do not want to miss.
Be sure to have me back.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, we definitely will.
Absolutely. We enjoyed you having it so much. So next week we have Matt LaCroix, esoteric historian, author. So join us for that. And thank you, everybody. Thank you, Cheryl. And to the believer, the evidence is overwhelming.
And to the skeptic, there will never be enough.
Thank you. God bless you. Everyone have a wonderful weekend.